So this could possibly be the most expensive lamp that I have. So, did any of you 90s kids like me ever pitch a tent like this with laptops? So the two laptops could talk to each other over infrared? Actually, neither of these laptops have infrared. I haven't had a laptop with infrared since the 90s. But back then, we had this cool communication technology called IRDA, and two laptops, when positioned like this in a tent formation, could often talk to each other at serial port speeds or maybe even a couple of megabits per second. And that was enough to transfer files way faster than over a modem or a serial port. And so we did that a lot back then. So fast forward, I don't know, 30 years or something, and infrared is trying to make a comeback. So this guy here is a ceiling mounted lamp that broadcasts a network over infrared. It's called LiFi, which is just sort of a pun on Wi-Fi being wireless and LiFi being light. So these two guys here can communicate using infrared invisible light at relatively high speeds. I'm getting about 150 megabits per second or so, which is not awful. And this guy doesn't have any radio frequencies involved. So back in the 90s when we had IRDA, the selling point back then was that the infrared hardware was really cheap, and Wi-Fi didn't exist yet and Bluetooth didn't exist yet, so it was kind of magical to be able to talk without a wire. But also it was really simple. If you pointed the two receivers at each other, they had a sort of cone they could be in up to about a meter back then, they would just talk to each other. There was no sort of SSID setup, no passwords to worry about, stuff like that. And your data was secure because the signal didn't reach that far. So with modern Wi-Fi, you can listen in on a Wi-Fi signal from well outside of the building that it's within. So someone could be sitting at the street listening to your Wi-Fi signal, decoding your password. I've made a video, by the way, on how easy it is to decode poor WPA2 passwords. And that wasn't a problem with infrared because it just doesn't travel that far. And so that's still an advantage today for some people. So if you put this guy on your ceiling, he can work for, I think his rated range is like 5 or 6 meters. I'll get into the specifics later in the video. But the idea is you put this guy on the ceiling and you put this little puck on the table and plug it into your laptop with a short cable. And now your laptop's connected to this super secure network broadcast by this infrared lamp access point. And so you can talk to the resources on this super secure network without any wireless signal leaking outside of this room. There's also some side effects like the lack of interference. So because the signal only goes for a few meters, we won't have interference from neighboring access points to nearly the same level. At most, we might be one lamp away. If you're in like a conference room or something like that, you could cover the whole room with one lamp. Then you'd have no interference at all from neighboring conference rooms, neighboring offices, stuff like that. And that's sort of one of the selling points of this technology. For high security environments like that, customers that need the most data integrity. So this technology is really new, and I wouldn't say it's available for home users yet, definitely not at these price points. But there are now real products on the market that are really selling. So this has sort of been in development for quite a long time now. There are two primary standards from two different standards bodies, which is not confusing enough, of course. We have 802.11bb from the IEEE, same guys that do Wi-Fi. And we have the one this is based on, ITU g.vlc. That's the International Telecommunications Union. They do like ATM and GPON and some of those other weird standards. So I was able to get my hands on a complete set to test with and play with in this video. So hopefully over the next few years, this technology will become more mainstream. We'll be able to bring back the laptop pitching tents for super high speed communication between devices that are right up next to each other. But until then, it's sort of a low volume experiment, and I am along for the ride. So if you guys want to see the cool advantages and the current state of LiFi technology, then come along on this adventure. Also, both of these guys are on loan to me from Aero LiFi, so they're not paying me, but I also don't get to keep them. So here's the two parts of a kit. We got a receiver and we got an access point. It's actually showing my ceiling light there in the reflection. So this is just sort of like any other Wi-Fi access point, except it's, well, it's got this window on it. So I flip it over on the back side. It's got power over Ethernet. So this is what provides both power and data to the access point. It's also got a clock signal. This is used to synchronize multiple access points in the same room. And then it just sort of goes up against the ceiling like any other access point. They actually sent me a nice little stand here. So if I get this guy in the stand, it's mounted horizontally now, but we can play with it. And then as for the receiver, this little puck here, he's got a USB Type-C, and you just sort of set him on the table, plug him into your laptop with a short cable, and he shows up as a plain old Ethernet adapter, so no special drivers for the laptop. And they sent me a little caddy to put him in for testing. Okay, so for some actual setup, I got power over Ethernet, just going to my plain old network, plug that in. These do have a sort of minimum range, and it's specified as a meter. So I'm going to put this guy all the way over there. Hopefully you can still see him on camera. Take my puck here. Got a USB cable going to the laptop. I guess we'll put him in his little dock so he's facing. Looks like he's booting up now. He's got some lights on him. So if you can see, he's got a green and a red light. And one of them should tell me when he's made a connection. Okay, so I hold my hand over it. I got green but no red, which I think means I'm powered and active, but I'm not connected to the network. Do I have to go this far away? There we go, okay. So I gotta get pretty far away to get a reliable connection. Now I'm getting a connection. So it just shows up here as LiFi dongle. So I'm a bit too close for a good setup here. Okay, so he's over next to the camera now, and I got a nice happy blinking green light here. So let's see what our bandwidth is like. Okay, 128 megabits per second. I turned off Wi-Fi, by the way, so you're just going through LiFi here. So this is about what you would expect with maybe like Wi-Fi 4. 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. Well, Wi-Fi 5 didn't have 2.4 gig. So this is like a generation or two old on Wi-Fi. And honestly, for like a first gen release, like these standards have just come out a few years ago for 802.11bb or ITU g.vlc. That's pretty impressive to me. So that shows this technology has a lot of promise for the future. Even if it's not quite at the same level as Wi-Fi 7 generations in, that's understandable to me. So another promise is that this should have a lower ping than Wi-Fi. So let's see what we got. So it looks like we're at 6, mostly in the range of maybe 1 to 5 milliseconds. I guess we'll see what the average is after a couple of samples. So it looks like our average was 2.9 milliseconds. So let's try that with Wi-Fi. So we're going to go ahead and unplug this guy, and then I'll turn Wi-Fi back on over there. Now I have Wi-Fi 6, but not 6E, so this will be on the 5 gigahertz band with 802.11ax. And then my server is connected over 10 gig. So let's see what we got here. That is very significantly higher, at least during the ramp up. So we do 10 pings again, and our average this time was 14, probably driven by the maximum of 79. Wow, we must have had a collision or something there. But yeah, our ping is definitely way lower with Li-Fi. So maybe if you're in some sort of immersive experience like virtual reality, where ping matters more than bandwidth, you can get 120 megabits per second with very low ping for a wireless setup. Or you could try to the 6 gigahertz band, Wi-Fi 6E, Wi-Fi 7. Those might get you less congestion, so you don't have the spikes like this, where you suddenly have 50 milliseconds of lag, but maybe there's some gamers that will want this. They also told me it should work outside, so since it's above 0 Celsius, I'm out here in a t-shirt. Let's see what my ping time is like. Okay, our ping time still seems pretty rock solid to me. So if I unplug this again, how would Wi-Fi do out here? So now I'm going through a concrete wall and a window. I was right next to the access point last time. So still getting ping spikes. My lowest ping here is just about my best ping with the Li-Fi, and it's certainly not consistent. So averaging, well, average was better this time, but the worst was worse. I also kind of want to know what the range is. So like, I'm out here outside, that's probably a worst case scenario. I would say I'm at about 3 meters right now, maybe closer to 4. So I got a connection. Let's run iPerf. Let's just run single stream iPerf and see how it drops off as I back up. So it's going down, probably getting near the end. I'm at least at 4 meters now. Yep, looks like we're starting to lose it. Not quite, but it's starting to flake out on us. Maybe at, where are we at now, like 5 meters? Okay, so about the range they said. So that's pretty much what I got for testing for today. I was kind of hoping there'd be some sort of web UI where I could look at the configs, but these guys actually don't have a web UI or really any configs to speak of. So the access point can be connected with that sync cable if there's more than one, so they don't flicker, I guess, interfering with each other. But these essentially just form an entirely transparent bridge. So they're sending Ethernet traffic across their link, and they're not involved other than passing Ethernet frames. So it could be because these guys are based on the ITU version of the spec. So like I said, there's 2 different competing standards out here in the market right now. There's IEEE's 802.11bb, which, as the name suggests, is part of the 802.11 like Wi-Fi working group. So I'm not sure about the deep technical details of BB, but I would assume it uses Wi-Fi-like framing and things like that. So probably inherits a lot of the link layer characteristics of Wi-Fi. Now this is the ITU's version, so g.vlc. Those are the guys that deal with DSL, GPON, ATM, other obscure technologies. So they like to do a lot of cell-framed stuff instead of, I guess, whatever Wi-Fi is. So this is probably pretending to be some sort of ATM-based, ATM-like transport and encapsulating Ethernet inside of it, and it's entirely transparent to us. So it just sort of works. So as for applications of this technology, I've been running a ping here while I've been thinking about what to say, and over the course of 1,000 pings, I averaged 2.8 milliseconds with a maximum of 7 milliseconds. So that's just from here to that side of the room, it's like 2 meters. And the bandwidth at this distance is still about 120 megabits per second. So manufacturer here claims they'll get basically 100 megabits per second consistent with no interference from other wireless devices in the building, which is definitely true. So this signal is essentially not leaving this room. So if I close the door, then no one outside of this room can capture this signal and analyze it. And even if they were, each of these has a line of sight, a sort of cone. And so you would have to be physically in the middle of the path, not just nearby, to capture both sides of the conversation. So this is quite a cool technology. I do want everyone to be aware that this is still really early technology. These standards have only been out for a few years, and these are really first-gen products. So they're trying to find niche use cases that are willing to pay a premium for the advantages that gets. So far they found sort of defense applications, which makes a lot of sense to me. I've never actually had a security clearance before, but I've worked in a company that did a lot of high security stuff, and many of my coworkers would occasionally go into rooms we call the lockups. And so no windows, one door, sign in, sign out, that kind of stuff. Can't look at Stack Overflow when you're programming. So those kind of people have old school C++ books on their desk and stuff like that to actually read because they can't search for anything. But something like this will let them use wireless in that sort of room if they wanted to take their computer from their desk to a conference room or something, as opposed to just not being able to do that because Wi-Fi is not allowed in those sort of areas. So that's the niche that these guys have found themselves in so far. Given the low latency advantages and stability at short range, I think this will become a more widespread technology for sort of short-range wearable stuff. So they propose it for virtual reality. That could be fantastic for VR, where you're dealing with not absolutely massive bandwidths, but very low latency being critical. So there are obviously low latency wireless systems, lower latency than Wi-Fi. But currently, some of the major VR headsets do use Wi-Fi for remote connection to a computer. And so that, of course, introduces jitter, and gamers hate jitter. So I'm going to be following where this technology goes in the future. If you guys have any cool use cases for something like this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments down below. Of course, this stuff I used today is made by LiFi. They loaned it to me so I could make this video and show off LiFi technology, which is super cool. There are other manufacturers out there. So LiFi makes this sort of puck that you sit next to your computer and then you put the access point on the ceiling. That's the idea, at least. And that works really well. Some other manufacturers will sell just a bare like module that you solder onto your project. So if you're building some sort of like factory robots or stuff like that, that could be super useful for you to have a more embedded solution than LiFi's. But there's all kinds of form factors of this out here. There's about 6 different companies that actually make this stuff. Some of them using the ITU standard and some of them using the IEEE standard. So if you have a use case or if you've actually used this before, I would love to hear about it. If you want to chat with me, comments down below, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. I also sell t-shirts. This is actually not one of my t-shirts, but I sell t-shirts now. So if you want to buy one of my t-shirts, link down below for that as well. That helps support me and helps support the channel. So thank you for that. I have a Discord server if you want to message me there. Link down below for that as well. And I guess I'll see you guys on the next adventure.